Hi, Thrive family. Yesterday we talked about Jesus' entry into Jerusalem, perhaps not so triumphal, but the prophesied coming of the King took place. We saw that yesterday. After he made his way slowly through the crowded streets of Jerusalem, and as the day carried on, Mark tells us that he made his way to the temple. That actually would have been the temple courts, the area surrounding the temple itself. And it says simply that he looked around at everything. There's not a lot of indication that he said anything, or at least said too much, not even maybe a single word. But the point is here that he was just taking it all in as he was looking around. And I think based on what we read after this and what we'll take a look at later today, we can certainly imagine what it was that he saw. We saw men frantically setting up tables and staging animals in cages, doves that would have been sold, and loading their cash registers, if you will. I think their mind was on making a profit, and they probably would have had very little knowledge, or there would have been very little, if you will, indication that they were contemplating how holy of a place this was. They were all about business of the day. Well, Jesus would have been none too pleased with that. In fact, I think he was sad. We read this, and we also know that there would have been some righteous anger that would have risen up inside of him. What would he do? Nothing. Not this evening, not that Sunday evening. Scriptures tell us that being late, he simply did a U-turn. He took his 12 disciples. They left the temple area, and they made their way back to Bethany, a couple miles, like we talked about, to go spend the evening, to spend the night with Mary and Martha and Lazarus. So neat to see King Jesus, our Savior, hanging out with close friends. And we don't read a whole lot about what took place. I would love to have been there, how personal our Jesus is. So Monday morning comes, and Jesus would have awakened, and we know that God is not quick to anger, right? So maybe we could say that Jesus slept on it. I don't know. But as he woke up on Monday, he had a single passion, a single mission, at least for the moment, and that was to go back to the temple and to take care of business. He couldn't let them make a mockery of a place of worship. So he would make his way to go to the temple. And we little note here, as he's making his way to the temple, he passes a fig tree. And so let's talk about this fig tree, this fig bush for just a bit here. So fig trees leaf out, get real green and leaf out before they bear fruit. So a fig tree that's full of leaves would typically have fruit, right? Well, this one had a whole lot of leaves. Jesus would have thought it had fruit. He goes to it. There's no fruit on it. And what does he do? Well, he curses the fig tree. So what is, like, Jesus throwing a temper tantrum here? Hardly. There's a lot of meaning probably here, and scholars have debated, through the years what it means. But I think we can suffice it to say, listen, he didn't curse the tree because it didn't have fruit, but he cursed it because it did have leaves and didn't have fruit. So basically, when something appears a certain way outwardly, but when you get real close and you look inside it and you see something different, there's a problem. I guess we could say the fig tree, this leafy fig tree, was being a hypocrite. We'll see a little bit more about the fig tree later, but I think there's a lesson for us there. So he makes his way to the temple. He goes to the court of the Gentiles, and he would have looked around, and I think the place probably sounded like a cross, or sounded like a cross between maybe Wall Street and a livestock market. Just the pilgrims were coming in to celebrate the Passover, and they would have been buying doves to sacrifice for their cleansing, so they could go through all of the traditions that they would have done. Just so happens you could buy them there, right, for a pretty steep price, I'm sure. And also the foreigners that were coming in would have to exchange their money for local currency. Just so happens they had money changers there, and I'm sure the exchange rate was pretty high. What a mess all this was. You know, Jesus saw this mockery, this buying and selling and ripping people off, all in the name of worship. So Jesus drove them out. He drove out the buyers and sellers, those who were selling doves. He overturned the cages. You know, it says that he drove all out who were buying and selling. Get out, you know. How dare you turn my Father's house, a place of worship, a place of prayer, into a marketplace? You know, he had passion for God's house. And as he said, my house, you know, it's going to be called a house of prayer, and you've turned it into a den of thieves. Wow. We see anger in Jesus here this day. So following this, after this cleansing, Jesus made his way back to Bethany to spend the night. But he didn't do that before he spent some time touching some precious people. You know, he healed and he gave sight to, we don't know how many, but on the way out he did that. It's so interesting that, you know, he brought back the true meaning of what this place was supposed to be all about, you know. Let's think about some questions as we read today's scriptures. I've got 3. Number 1, you know, when Jesus looks into our church, into our fellowship, when he looks into the temple of our own hearts, what does he see? You know, what are we doing in our church? What are we engaging in our lives? Worldly pursuits or heavenly pursuits? And secondly, thinking about this fig tree, you know, that he passed on the way to the temple, are we appearing to be one thing on the outside, as if there's great fruit, you know, but really when you look close, there's none there, or maybe there's very little, or maybe it's dry, or maybe it's rotten? Something to think about. And what can we do to change this? And then thirdly, as we make our way out of church every Sunday, as Jesus was making his way out of the temple area there, as he stopped and he spent time with individuals and he touched those in need. When we make our way out of the corporate gathering on Sunday, do we just rush off to our cars and leave, or do we spend time with someone in need? Do we touch a life? Do we pause? I think there's great application in that. Alone for us. So may the Lord bless you as you read these scriptures today. I just pray that God would reveal so much to our hearts about who he is. And I look forward to tomorrow spending some more time together. Drink deep of the Word. God bless you guys.